Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Double Play Podcast. I'm Jack Smith, joined today by my righteous co-host, Ryan Donahue. And
Yes.
apologies for the lack of energy. Baseball was fairly energetic this weekend, but I got a troubling lack of sleep this weekend. And I know Ryan's all sore from club baseball. So a little bit of lack of energy from me today, but I'm going to try and rally my way through it. And I'll let you start with your club baseball story, and then I'll get into why I lacked some sleep this last weekend.
My club baseball career is finally taken off. I went 5 for 11 this week at the plate with a walk and a hit by pitch. So that brings my average up to a cool 227 on this season through, I think, seven games. And had another pitching appearance this weekend. Went CG 7 innings. My first probably pitching appearance that went longer than 1 inning since I would say eighth grade, probably. I threw probably about 120 pitches at least. And I'll bring up my stats here. 7 innings pitched, 9 hits, 3 earned runs, 4 walks, and 8 Ks. So I was happy with it. I did give up a bomb, but there was 26-mile-an-hour winds blowing out to left field. So I think one bomb I was happy with, only giving up one. But I had a fun time this week and finally starting to play well. And it's a great time. Yeah, that's my club baseball. How are you feeling now, Jack?
Well, first of all, that's one hell of an outing. I'm very proud of you. Congratulations.
How
many times?
I did forget to mention, though, absolutely everything hurts. There is an ungodly amount of Tiger Balm on my body today trying to repair me.
How many curveballs did you throw of the 120 pitches?
Oh, I was mixing in. I went fastball, curveball, slider, cutter. Threw them all. Fastball, curveball the most. Threw in some sliders towards the end of my outing and a few cutters mixed in. But I got to third after one of my hits. Third baseman goes, "I didn't know you had a slider." It's like, yeah, it's pretty dirty, huh?
That's a flex and a half. Yeah, no. So Saturday night, first of all, great week of baseball. We're going to get to that in a second. But Saturday night, got back, and just every month or so, I just can't fall asleep. And so that ended up going till like 5 o'clock in the morning. Had to wake up only a couple hours later to go to an art museum for class, due Friday. I took an Uber there, an Uber on the way back. And of course, Uber drivers, knowing I wasn't feeling great, had to swerve and bump over every single bump in the road. They were not nice rides. So just a pretty horrible day yesterday. Still really tired, even though I got a good amount of sleep, but fitting this in between some classes. And still, I'm excited to talk about baseball, but if I fall asleep or yawn during the middle of the episode, it's not my fault. Let's start with baseball. We've got a lot of quick hitters because it was a great season. Opening day weekend, a lot of great series, a lot of great moments. We're going to get into that and then focus on three, we'll call them meat topics for the episode later, which were kind of based on series. We're going to do Brewers, Cubs, Mets, Nationals, and the Blue Jays and the Rangers. But before we get to that, Ryan, quick hitters. Starting with the Seth Beer home run. My God, that was a perfect start to the baseball season.
Yeah, finished off the nightcap. I think was the last game of the day. Seth Beer walk-off home run on National Beer Day. That was funny. Yeah, D-backs, they pulled out the win after they were getting no hit through, I think, like 6 innings against Yu Darvish. They came from behind to win the game walk-off. It was exciting, and it was a great way to finish off the opening day of baseball. And it started off a great weekend, and we saw energy in that home run, energy in lots of other home runs, like Buxton's triple decker. He was hyped for that. Pete Alonso's grand slam where he had that sexy bat flip. All the firsts that we saw as well, the first hits, home runs, appearances from like Julio Rodriguez, CJ Abrams, Bobby Witt, Elliot Ramos, Hunter Green. We saw Stephen Kwan go off. So there was just a lot of things that we saw that we loved, and it's just going to be an exciting season all around, but baseball's back.
Yeah, one thing, some energy in a homer was Gary Sanchez put a lot of energy into a ball that did not quite get out, was caught at the wall. That was a little bit of the opposite of the Byron Buxton home run, which went in the third deck in the same stadium. One of the tweets I saw was like, oh, he's adjusting to the new outfield at Target Field as opposed to Yankee Stadium. But the fence is actually closer at Target Field than Yankee Stadium. So it was really funny. That was one of the highlight moments for me of the first weekend, because it was just the first kind of funny miscue that we've seen in baseball so far. But yeah, the Seth Beer one was absolutely fantastic. the fact that it happened after they were getting no hit through 6 innings was cool and all, but the fact that it happened on National Beer Day, Seth Beer hitting the home run, absolutely fantastic. And he was the first DH to ever hit instead of Madison Bumgarner hitting, which I thought was pretty funny since he joined and since this new DH was playing. And it ended up culminating in a walk-off home run. That was a very good moment to start the season.
Yeah, you mentioned the Gary Sanchez one. I think we were on FaceTime when that happened. I was watching that game. I was like, oh, walk-off home run. Because I saw Gary Sanchez bat flip and then Jesse Winker's at the track and just catches the ball. So that was a funny one. And another thing we saw this weekend was Rachel Balkovec, I believe is how it's pronounced.
Yep.
First female manager in the Yankees organization, minor league manager. She gets her first win. It's great to see that breaking barriers, expanding the game, giving young girls who are baseball fans, they give someone to look up to, and it's just great for the game. And we love to see that.
Yeah, I'm sure she'll be the first of many. It was a big story this offseason that they hired her, and obviously kudos to her for landing the spot. Definitely deserved. But for her to get her first win this weekend, another great piece of news coming out of Japan as well. Like, we're not just an MLB podcast, we're covering the minors and Japan here. Roki Sasaki, 20-year-old, threw a 19 strikeout perfect game, the first Nippon professional baseball perfect game in 28 years. 19 strikeouts on only 105 pitches. Absolutely elite performance out of Japan.
Yeah, that was exciting. He's just a great pitcher, young sensation. He's going to be great for a while. Hopefully a few years down the line, we do see him come to the MLB. But for now, I mean, he's exciting to watch. Those highlights are exciting. And I hope to see him in the MLB one day. Yeah,
as of right now, can't come. It's only his second year in professional baseball. And funny enough, he was thrown to a catcher who was 18 years old. So starting battery that averages out about 19 years old with a 19 strikeout perfect game. Pretty sensational. But yeah, hopefully he can follow in the steps of Shohei Ohtani, maybe even Seiya Suzuki, which we'll get to later. But incredible performance. And the last quick hitter that we had some funny mic'd up moments in the first week of baseball. ESPN, while some people don't like putting the mics on players during the games, and I might be part of that group as well, I'm also for growing the game of baseball and marketing the talent in Major League Baseball. So we've got a couple here, starting with Joey Votto, which I know you were a big fan of. What did you think of that one?
Joey Votto is just a great character. And you mentioned some people might not like it. I'm on the train of like leaning towards not liking it. But I mean, at the end of the day, it is the player's choice. So if the players choose to, that's kind of on them. So I'm fine with it. And it really seems like it's going to continue. But Joey Votto, he was great. He was so funny with like bringing Ozzy Albies when he was on first into it. Ask him, you think I should get a diamond tooth? And he goes, go for it. And so Joey Votto is just a funny guy. And then the next one we saw was Kike Hernandez in the Sunday Night Baseball game last night. And he kind of had a cool moment I liked. It wasn't as like funny type as Joey Votto's, but he goes like, all right, so we got fast runner on third, slower runner on second, ground ball to me. I'm going to come up throwing and try and go to the plate. I just thought it was cool to see kind of his thought process. And I mean, you always are told when you're younger, like if you get the ball, know what you're doing with it. And it was kind of cool to see him talk out loud, like what he's going to do with the ball. And then the next pitch, he does get a ball hit to him. It was a little bit to his right. So he made the throw home, but it wasn't in time on an Anthony Rizzo game tying base hit in that game. But it was cool to see that. And then when he was going into the dugout, he nominated Ozzy Albies to be next. And so I think that part is kind of cool as well. I think the nominations make it a kind of a cool thing to see, like, all right, he's next. And it seems like it's something that's going to happen throughout the course of the season, which it grew on me these last two for sure. But yeah, what did you think about those two mic'd up moments and potentially more in the future?
Yeah, I have to admit it's funny to see Joey Votto talking about a diamond tooth on the baseball field. And it was cool to see Kike's awareness. And then also during that play, even though he said he was going to throw the guy out at home, realized he didn't have a chance to then instead hit his cutoff man to keep Rizzo at first. So just good to be inside the mind and the eyes of the baseball player. And it was funny because he had to be running around the whole time. Again, I think it's kind of weird sometimes, and I wouldn't want it in a playoff game or a high stakes matchup. The managers never really make sense to me because they just don't seem that interested in it. But if you're getting players like Votto or Kike who seem to enjoy it, and they're willing to like actually chop it up instead of giving a couple word answer. And it seems like the announcers are just annoying them. I'm all for that. One thing Kike said that was funny to me is they asked him about the difference between Yankees, Red Sox, Dodgers, Giants, if they were similar. And he said super similar, just colder. And I thought that was the perfect answer. And I think that us Dodgers and Giants fans would agree that like maybe it's a rivalry that doesn't get as much respect as the Yankees and Red Sox, but it definitely should.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, excited to see where that goes this season. But with that, we can get into our kind of meat for today's episode. And the first thing we're going to start off with the Brewers Cubs. Jack, what do you think about that series?
So I was told by a friend after we put out our series locks for last week that I definitely should have put down Brewers and Cubs. They said, it's Corbin Burns, it's Brandon Woodruff, Freddie Peralta. You're not getting through that big three. And I said, yeah, I thought about it, but not really sure if the Brewers offense will show up enough. And I was just not enough for me to put it as a lock. Anyways, I'm glad I didn't. The Cubs take 2 of 3 from the Brewers, and that big three, the Brewers starting pitching, gave up 13 earned runs in 12.2 innings. A lot of that was Brandon Woodruff giving up 7, but Corbin Burns looked human. Freddie Peralta looked human. And I was right. The offense struggled at some points. They got shut out in game 2, and they could have been a sweep by the Cubs, but Michael Brasso hit a home run in the 7th inning of yesterday night's game. And so they won by 1 in game 3 to avoid the sweep. But overall, not the best opening series for the Brewers. Then I think that the key point was that they looked human in the starting pitching 3 that everyone was so afraid of. And when that happens, you don't get to see guys like Devin Williams and Josh Hader come in and shut down in game-winning situations.
The Brewers' success this season will be, I think, mainly upon if that starting pitching can keep up and kind of dominate, because I mean, their offense, it's not one of the best offense. It's a good offense for sure, but it's not one of the best in the MLB. So they will have to rely on that, the starting pitching and the back end of the bullpen to win some lower scoring games throughout the season. And if you have your pitchers not showing up, which like you said, you can't hand it off to the bullpen, then it's going to be tough to win a lot of games. And, but yeah, from the Cubs side, they played well. Kyle Hendricks pitched well. Marcus Stroman pitched well in his debut, even though the Cubs ended up losing that game. But Seiya Suzuki arrived. He got his first hit and then his first bomb. I believe his first bomb was yesterday. And that ball was crushed as well. So it's exciting to see what the Cubs can do. They're kind of a team that's kind of projected around to be the middle of the pack, but it'll be interesting to see what they can do this season if they do find some success and where they end up in the Central.
Yeah, I would like to talk to who had Kyle Hendricks with more strikeouts than Corbin Burns on opening day. Not something that I necessarily projected, but I'm curious as to what you think about this Brewers offense. There's something that I brought up in the offseason when we were doing their record predictions. I just worry about how they could produce. They kind of take an approach similar to the Rays or the Giants, in which they don't have a ton of stars, but they've got chances on guys. They get production out of guys that you really wouldn't expect it to come from. But sometimes they also just can't put up the same amount of runs as some teams can. I mean, the Cubs put up 12 runs, or no, the Rangers put up 12 runs yesterday. Like, they've got some star power now, but the Brewers, one of those teams that haven't shelled out huge contracts. And with guys like Yelich struggling, and you're not going to get the production from Willy Adames every day, their offense can not produce on some days, like you see them getting shut out in game 2. So I'm curious if you're worried at all about this Brewers offense.
Definitely. And I mean, Yelich is a guy with a lot of question marks. He could be big and kind of be that star for them and carry them, or he could see what he did the last 2 seasons where he kind of struggled, and like, he still had good seasons, but not star level seasons. And you're right, Willy Adames, he's good, but he's been a little inconsistent. And Brasso, I mean, he'll contribute, but he's not really there. Rowdy Tellez at first, he'll put up a few big bombs. So yeah, they're kind of a boomer bust type of team. Like, you could see all those guys kind of put it together. McCutchen as well. There's some question marks with him get the last few seasons, but they're a team that can put it together on any given night and put up 10 runs, or they're a team that can struggle and get shut out like we saw on Saturday. So they do have a lot of question marks. And like I said, I think for this season, for them to be good and to win the NL Central, it's going to be on the pitching, the starting pitching and the back end of the bullpen. So I think that's going to be big for them. And if they struggle, I mean, it could be an ugly season, kind of a disappointing season for the Brewers. And I know it is the first weekend of the season. We had a shortened spring training, so we're not weighing too much on this opening weekend outings. But if it is something that keeps up, it might not be looking good for Brewers fans this whole season if their offense continues to play like they did this weekend as well.
Yeah, it's funny because they're built kind of the opposite way of the Cardinals, who are their biggest competition in the Central. Whereas we talk about the Cardinals, we love their offense, we love their defense. They're kind of missing out on the pitching though. And then we're talking about the Brewers, elite pitching, but we are a little worried about the offensive production. Again, you're right. First week of the season, I'm sure it'll work itself out, but they are a team that does have competition for the division, and sometimes it can come down to who puts up more runs. And I just don't think, if you're looking at the Brewers and Cardinals straight up, I don't think you're expecting the Brewers to score more runs than the Cardinals on the whole season or in particular games. So the Brewers pitching, you're right, needs to step up. If they give up a run per inning, like each of their starters, a run per inning each outing, they're not going to win as many games as I think we thought they would. I'm sure it'll come back to normal, but I think the point I was making in the offseason is I'm not sure what normal is. I'm not sure if normal is a season they had last year. It could mean they lose the Central to the Cardinals, come in second. Like, I'm still confident in the Brewers as a playoff team. Again, we still love their 3 starters, but just something to keep an eye on after 1 week.
Yeah, and I think staying in the NL now, going to the Mets Nationals, this was a great series, and we saw a lot of things in this series. We mentioned the Pete Alonso Grand Slam. We'll talk about that a little bit. But Mets Nationals, that was a great series, and we saw a lot of different debuts, I guess, different things we saw in that series. Jack, you want to get into it?
Yeah, so I think the main place to start is that benches clearing. Not, unfortunately for baseball fans, not a brawl, but benches clearing moment where Francisco Lindor was hit in the face. Luckily, it caught the C part of the kind of mask that moves off of his helmet, so it did not hit him straight in the jaw, and he passed concussion protocol. Not going to need surgery or anything. He's not badly injured, which is good. But at that point, he had been the 4th Met hit in 14 innings of baseball, and the second one hit in the face because Pete Alonso in the night before had also been hit in the face. So Buck Showalter and then the rest of that Mets dugout was not happy with it. So benches cleared. I know you texted me saying this is a really good sign for the Mets because it looks like they really care. They're going to go out and back up Francisco Lindor. And I'm sure a lot of people will say, oh, that's the old head of Buck Showalter. If you hit my guy, then we're going to come after you and that kind of stuff. But I think you're right. It's good to see some energy out of this Mets squad. It was good to see the benches clear for baseball fans after the lockout and everything like that. And that was, I think, to that point, our first benches clearing of the season. But yeah, the Mets or the Nationals need to control their pitches a little more. Too many hit by pitches in this series.
We did also see benches clear on the Brewers Cubs that we forgot to mention towards the end of the series yesterday. But yeah, the scene I was talking about for the Mets is when Lindor got hit in the face. I mean, it seems like all the Mets were fed up. I mean, they were already angry after game 1 of the series, but when Lindor got hit in the head, there was a shot. Like I was watching it live, and when it had a call kind of calmed down a little bit, they got everyone separated. They were showing like some replays, and there was an angle. You could see Lindor, and the Mets bench was in the background. And when Lindor goes down, almost immediately, Buck Showalter comes out, and every single Mets player on the bench hops over the railing, like right behind him. So I thought it was cool to see them united, and like they all came out at once. It wasn't a thing where like you normally see with brawls where like guys start chirping and then everyone comes out after. Like they immediately came to his defense, and I think that's good for the Mets. It's good to see. And Buck Showalter was saying he kind of like he's rallied around the guys. It wasn't like a Tony La Russa situation last year where there was some disconnect early in the season, but I think that was good for the Mets. And yeah, I mean, another thing we saw in this series was the Nationals' new uniforms. And Jack, I know you have some opinions about those, but I kind of liked them. I still love the City Connect jerseys, and we saw the Astros new one yesterday. I love those ones. I think those are one of my favorites. Those looked really good, as much as I don't like the Astros, but I thought they looked good. Jack, I know you have maybe a little bit different opinions. What did you think about the new National City Connect jerseys?
Yeah, I'm going to echo what I said when we had them as a quick hitter. They just needed more pink. Honestly, if for a night game, bringing out just kind of dark, muted gray jerseys with some white and a little bit of pink, they just kind of look like gray jerseys. And dark gray jerseys, something that I said I didn't really know if it worked on a baseball team for a baseball jersey, and I didn't think it worked all that well for them. I wish they were pink. Honestly, if they were pink, it would be awesome. And unfortunately for them on that day as well, Pete Alonso took him deep for a huge grand slam, probably the most key moment of the series that we can get to in a little bit. But what I wanted to touch on first was right at the start of the series and coming into the year, we were thinking, okay, DeGrom's the opening day starter. Then DeGrom goes down. So it's okay, Scherzer's going to start opening day. It's not Scherzer. They don't tell us who it is. So we assume it's Bassett. Maybe it's Taijuan Walker. Maybe it's Carlos Carrasco, and ends up being Tylor Megill. I think if you were to pick going into the season, maybe the sixth guy that you would think to start opening day for the Mets, and he shoves. He looked really good. He's throwing a lot harder than last year. And it kind of is a whole story is even though DeGrom is down, even though Scherzer is still a little limited, Megill, Bassett, Carrasco, Alonso, Lindor, like the Mets still stepped up, still performed really well in the series against the Nationals. And I think that's something that we haven't seen from Mets squads in year past, dealing with adversity and just being a strong team up and down the lineup. So even without DeGrom, it was good to see the Mets still as a dangerous team. And if they can get contributions like this from Megill, Bassett, Carrasco, Scherzer getting fully healthy, that's a huge sign for New York.
Yeah, the Mets, they still look dangerous in this weekend series with the Nationals. So Mark Canha, he went 7 for 10. He was a new addition. Marte had a couple of hits. He's new. So they kind of had these new looks. Francisco Lindor hit a bomb, which is good to see after he struggled a little bit last season. Pete Alonso with that huge monster grand slam that helped the Mets in that game. And with that nice little twirl bat flip, I loved that. But yeah, I think the Mets, they're still going to be dangerous. And we talked about their starting pitching before. They're going to be one of the better rotations when healthy, if not maybe the best rotation in baseball when they are healthy. So when they get fully healthy, they're a team that's going to be a real threat in the National League.
Yeah, again, can't say enough about the performance of the Mets. I said picking up the slack from DeGrom and Scherzer being down. Scherzer still came in and started on that day that the Nats had their City Connect jerseys. Also on that day was the Apple TV broadcast, the debut of the Apple TV broadcast. And I know we were on FaceTime when it happened, and we both liked the graphics. We think, I'm all for diversifying MLB broadcasting. I think it'll be good for the sport. I liked the graphics, like the score bug, all that stuff. They had really cool stats on the bottom right telling you about the hitters. The announcing has some room to grow. I love trying new things in a booth, but there was one specific moment that I know a lot of people are clowning on Twitter, which is the Fogo de Chao story. When it was a one-run game, everyone really wants to tune in on the day that Scherzer's making his first start. It's a close game, and for about a minute and a half, they say Fogo de Chao like 1,000 times, and we're not focusing on the baseball at all. So again, it was funny. It's the first game with this new booth. I'm sure they'll figure things out a little bit, focus a little bit more on the baseball, but I don't know if you were watching at that point. I thought it was pretty funny.
Yeah, I saw that. And like you said, I love the look of it. The kind of like the Apple, like little bit of transparency in like this in the scoreboard areas. And they had those live stats at the bottom. Like it would say like reach base probability or RBI probability, like depending on the count too. So it would change every pitch, which was I like to see that. And had their name down there at all times. So you kind of like, if you didn't know who was hitting, like you're just tuning in, you knew who everyone was. So I thought there was a lot of cool aspects to it. You're right. I mean, the broadcasting crew probably it's definitely can get better, but overall I liked it. And I think it'll, like you said, it's going to diversify the way you can watch games. And I think it's kind of ushers in a new generation. I think within the next 5 years, we're going to see a lot more of exclusive games on different streaming services like this, which, I mean, maybe some people like it, some people don't, but I think it is the future.
Yeah. And like I said, I'm all for diversifying, making new ways to watch baseball, because obviously You got to identify with the younger generation. It's something that baseball fans will complain about not marketing players and not bringing in the younger generation. But when it comes to stuff like this, then they'll complain like, no, I want to watch my Mets on SNY. Why are you making me buy an Apple TV subscription? It's like, well, the kids are on the streaming services. So if you want them to be baseball fans, like pick one or the other. I'm a fan. I like diversifying this stuff. And there's only room to grow. We saw, I mean, ESPN still doing their stuff with the mic'd up. They've got the K-Rod broadcast, which I still have to get around to checking out some of the highlights. I've got it queued up on YouTube to eventually watch. So I can't comment on that quite yet, but I'm liking doing the new things like we saw with the Peyton and Eli for football. I'm sure this stuff's going to keep changing. I'm all for it. The next series that we wanted to get into is the Blue Jays and the Rangers. This one was a crazy series. Starting in game one, we both had them as series locks, the Blue Jays over the Rangers, and Jose Barrios goes there and craps the bed in the first inning. And we were like, that's not what we expected this Blue Jays team to be like. But then they come back from down 7, I think, after the 4th inning to win the game. And that kind of set the tone for the whole series. It was back and forth, electric offense, blown leads, a crazy series. What's the first thing you want to touch on?
I think just the Blue Jays offense is as advertised. They were electric. They showed sparks in all parts of their order. Matt Chapman hit a bomb. I believe Teoscar had the game tying one in one of the games. Vladdy hit one. Bo Bichette hit one. So, I mean, their offense is just dirty. And we saw their starting pitching struggle, which is something we'll talk about as well. But even when they starting pitching struggled, the offense found a way to keep them in the games and win the games. So I think, and those games in Canada, they've got all of Canada behind them. Those games in Toronto are just so exciting. One thing we saw was it was late in game 1 of the series when there was the overturned call where the ump came onto the mic and said, after review, he is safe. And the crowd goes wild. And it was just awesome to see. It was great rather than just the umpire coming out and say safe. I think that part of an umpires announcing the call instead of just making the gesture is great for the game as well. And I thought that was so exciting. And the Blue Jays, man, they're going to be a fun team to watch this season.
Yeah, that was the part that struck me the most after that game 1 was that electric, the Rogers Center. They've got all of Canada behind them, as you said. It was absolutely riled up in Canada. They were amazing. The Rockies had the highest attendance of the weekend, but the Blue Jays crowd, I think, was the most into it. They were going crazy, and for good reason. Like you said, their offense was absolutely electric. Vladdy did more than hit just one. He hit the farthest home run of his career so far. Absolutely smacked. Bo Bichette had a huge home run. Teoscar had that big one. Matt Chapman came in, hit his first home run. They were all smacking the ball around the yard, and so were the Rangers. The Rangers, like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, hit for 12 runs yesterday. So both offenses were electric. Both blew leads at one point in the game. Like we said, the Blue Jays came back down 7, and yesterday the Blue Jays blew the lead to the Rangers. So it was a great series. Let's get into some of those Blue Jays starting pitching struggles, though. We were watching games on FaceTime on opening day, and we were both invested. I was watching Marlins Giants. You were watching Dodgers Rockies, and then the Blue Jays game started, and you were like, oh, dang, the Rangers scored a couple in the first against the Blue Jays. I was like, oh, wow. And then I realized, wait, Barrios is starting. I have my fantasy team, and I look, and he gets one out. I should have traded for, well, we'll get into that. And he ends up getting one out and then getting pulled out of the game after giving up a bunch of runs. Seager was in the mix. Semien was in the mix. That whole top of the Rangers lineup was just getting on Jose Barrios. And I was like, uh-oh. But then like we mentioned, they come back to win the game.
Yeah, unfortunately, which being in Texas, Fort Worth, it's like 20 minutes from Arlington where the Rangers play. I couldn't actually watch any of those games because MLB TV has them all blacked out, which I was so disappointed. I didn't even think of that. I was like, that was one of the series I was most excited to watch, to see Seager, who I might like him. I don't know if you can tell.
A little bit.
But and the Rangers, they're kind of like the hometown team, a lot of fans here. And then obviously the Blue Jays are so exciting. So that was one of the series I wanted to watch the most, and I wasn't able to. So all I saw was highlights, and the exciting moments where they hit the bombs and the crowd going crazy. But yeah, Barrios, he struggled for sure. And I mean, I won that trade, but
it's one start.
I know,
and it's not like Gosman did all that much better the next day. So
I'm just getting a reaction out of you. But yeah, but I traded Barrios and what was it? It was Jared Walsh for Freddie Freeman and Noah Syndergaard. Noah Syndergaard pitched well for the
Angels. That was a good performance. Justin Verlander back on that day as well.
Yeah, that was an exciting game, but we're not going to talk about that series as much. But yeah, the Blue Jays starting pitching struggled, but the series as a whole, it's just super exciting. And like Barrios struggled that first game, like we mentioned. Gosman didn't do too hot. And game 3, who do you remember who were their game 3?
Yeah, it was Manoah.
Was it Manoah?
Was it Manoah?
I thought I saw Manoah was pitching today, but
okay, maybe not.
Yeah, I mean, the Blue Jays went up 6-0 in that game and then gave up 12 runs, but it lost 12-6 by the end.
Yeah, it was whoever did start. It was more on the bullpen than it was on them.
Yeah, so I mean, that'll be an interesting team. Hopefully, like we said, pitching. I mean, with the quick spring training, I think pitching will come with every team. But right now, it's focusing on the offense. Like we said, Blue Jays were electric, but I mean, Rangers put up runs as well. I mean, they're a team that's doesn't have the pitching. I don't think the Rangers are as much of the case as they need time. We just don't think they have the pitching to compete this season. But I mean, they got the stars now. Seager, Simeon. Seager, he went 6 for 13 this series, so you love to see that. I mean, I think he's worth every penny of that contract. But I love Seager. And then he had that weird bat break. I don't know if you saw that video.
It was so weird.
He like swung and it just came apart right here. So following through, he had the handle right here and the rest of the bat on his left hand. And he got a base hit on it on the swing, which was kind of bizarre. But that whole thing was bizarre. But Seager, that Rangers offense can put up runs. And we saw that when they win games, it's going to be those high scoring games most of the time.
Yeah, these are the runs they bought, and they got their money's worth in runs, and they put up more runs in the series than the Blue Jays did. Of course, scoring 12 runs in the last game helps.
Yeah,
but
I think a positive run differential, even going 1-2.
There you go. I think a good sign for the Rangers, maybe another sign that teams that don't spend money should start to spend some money in free agency, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, good for the Rangers. Blue Jays still ended up getting 2 wins in the series. There was so much that we loved from the first week. We can't overreact too much to like 3 games for each team. Next week, I think we're going to do some storylines and whether they're overreactions or not. But for this week, I mean, we only had 3 games pretty much in each series, so we couldn't get to everything. And it's hard to watch 50 games in a weekend. So if we didn't talk about your favorite team, we apologize for that. And if we if you're a Rangers fan and we missed out on something that happened in the 3rd inning of the second game with like 2 outs, we can't watch every single game. So we apologize if we missed a couple things. Let us know down in the comments what you liked from the first weekend. Your Dodgers, though, lost the series to the Rockies.
Yeah, I mean, you had them as a series lock. We're going to get into that in a second as well. But like I said, when you had them in a series lock, they struggled in spring training. So I needed to see a little bit from the Dodgers before I put them in my locks. But yeah, I don't really want to talk about it. 1-2 to the Rockies. First time they lose a series at Coors since 2018. So I think Dodgers Urias pitched horribly. Have him on my fantasy team. So I think hopefully the Dodgers don't struggle for too long, because I would hate to see that just as a fan. I really hope that changes, but yeah, I'm like Jack said, though, let us know what you liked from this first week. We'll have a conversation with you in the comments. So we'll get to talk about your favorite team or something you love to see in that way. But enough talk about the Dodgers. The Giants, unfortunately, won the series against the Marlins, which I thought the Marlins really had a chance. They blew that opener game where Jazz had a go-ahead bomb, and then they gave up a go-ahead bomb, and then the walk-off as well in extras. So do you want to talk about the Giants at all before we get into our series locks?
Yeah, I'd love to. The Dodgers on pace to only win about a third of their games. So Giants on pace to win 66%. Look at that. I think
we're not going to do overreactions.
Maybe it wasn't as exciting as the Blue Jays or the Rangers putting up 12 runs or 8 runs in a game and all these huge comebacks and tons of homers. But I thought pure baseball might have been one of the better series of the weekend. We got performances from 6 great starting pitchers, Webb, Rodon, and DeSclafani for the Giants, and Alcantara, Lopez, and Trevor Rogers for the Marlins. So some high octane pitching matchups in game 1. That's what we got between Webb and Alcantara. Game 2, Rodon with 12 Ks in his debut and was still somehow outperformed by Lopez. And it was 1-run game in all 3 games. Game 1 was exciting. It was a roller coaster, but ended up coming up with the win. And then game 3, maybe less of an exciting game, but Giants still come out with a win. So happy with what I saw. Got some good performances from some new guys. Tyro Estrada, a guy I'm high on going into the year, was a big contributor, hit the game-tying home run in the bottom of the 9th in game 1, played great defense. Joey Bart hit his first home run as a Giant. And then Elliot Ramos coming up yesterday and getting 2 hits and scoring a run in his debut. So excited by the Giants, excited by Carlos Rodon specifically. And they move on. They're going to play the Padres today and play them in a series, and then they are going to play the Guardians. So overall, happy, good first weekend for all of baseball, and I'm glad the Giants were able to squeak by and win 2 of 3 against the Marlins.
Yeah, and I think that kind of wraps up everything we wanted to talk about for the meat part. Just a great weekend in general, and we've got a great week coming up, but something we want to get into now is our series locks. We're going to review our picks for the opening weekend, give a little score update, and then give our picks for next week. And if you're new, if this is your first time or you didn't see last week's episode, the way series locks are going to work is it's going to go for the whole week. For the first week, we just did opening weekend, but this one is going to be for the whole first week. So we can pick any of this series that starts today or tomorrow, and then the weekend series as well. So we can pick from anyone. We pick a minimum of 1, maximum of 5. You get 1 point for a correctly pick, 2 points if it's a sweep, -1 if you get it wrong, and -2 if you get sweeped against. So yeah, I mean, last week I had the Phillies over the A's, which was correct. The Phillies won 2-1 that series. Padres over D-backs, they won that series 2-1. And the Blue Jays over Rangers, who won that series 2-1. So I get all of them correct. No sweep points. I just have 3 points right now.
Yeah, unfortunately, your Dodgers kind of screwed me over, but I was happy to see it. So that started me off as a -1. I also had Blue Jays over Rangers. +1 brought me to 0. And then I had Rays over Orioles, which even though I got a sweep, only brought me to 2 points on the week. So even like I had a sweep, but your Dodgers losing, I'm down on you 3-2 going into this week. And I think we each have, do you have 3 picks or 4 picks this week?
I've got 4. I just added a new one like just now.
Because you stole it from me. I just saw.
No, I was going to do that one originally, but then I had a change of idea. So but I changed it. Then I'm going to add it back just onto the other one that I added. But, and one thing we didn't mention, if at any point any of us go under 500, so if Jack had gotten 1 more wrong and been 1 for 3 instead of 2 for 3,
yeah. If the Blue Jays, if the Blue Jays had not come back to score, I would have been doing a punishment, which we put these on our Instagram. The rules are there. You can look it up on there. We'll probably end up putting them on Twitter this week as well. But punishments are going to be a group decision between you guys and us. I think we can have some ideas. You guys can have some ideas, but say I had gone under 500 last week, then I would be here today doing some version of punishment. A couple ideas I had that I explained in last week's episode, like rap freestyling your picks for the week, or taking a shot of hot sauce before doing your picks, whatever we can think of, whatever you guys can think of that's within reason and doable to put on YouTube and put on the internet and keep it out there for the rest of our lives. Whatever we deem to be okay, we will pick as a punishment. Hopefully that never happens for me. Love to see it happen to you, but
it won't. I'm perfect.
Let's get into our picks for this week and see which ones are going to have you doing a punishment next week.
Yeah. So we want to just go back and forth on this.
Yeah.
So I think one thing I want to say real quick is there's a lot of good series this week. That won't really factor into our locks because they're good series. They can go either way. So you should watch them. Stuff I want to talk about, Rays White Sox, that'll be a great series. Mets, Phillies, Blue Jays, Yankees. So not a good series this week. But then there's also these ones that we feel are locks. And we kind of want to avoid picking all the same teams every time and also all the same teams losing. So, but without further ado, first pick I'm going to go with is I've got the Mets over D-backs, and that's a weekend series for this coming weekend. So, I mean, the D-backs, they're the D-backs. We saw them lose 110 games last season, and the Mets we saw do great this week. So that's why I've got Mets over D-backs. Lock it in.
I thought about that one as well, but I ended up picking a different team. The D-backs are going to have a tough week because I have the Astros over the D-backs. That's this coming series, I believe, starting tomorrow, the day you guys are going to be seeing this as well on Tuesday. I've got the Astros over the D-backs. Not a whole lot from that Astros Angels series this week. We forgot to mention earlier in the mic'd up moments, but Jeremy Pena hitting his first home run with his parents on the mic was another great mic'd up moment. But Astros, strong performance. I think they will have an even stronger performance against the D-backs. If I had a lock, I would do it. I would say lock it in.
Yeah, and my second one was Yankees, who won their series against the Red Sox, the rivalry. I've got them over the Orioles. I mean, the Orioles, they're the only winless team left, and Yankees have a lot of star power. And so I think the Orioles will just struggle this. I think the Orioles might be a team that show up a lot this season in these series locks on the wrong end, just because they're in the tough AL East. So they can have a lot of series this year where they could be locked against. And for this one, I got the Yankees as a lock over the Orioles.
I want to take that one now. But again, I did pick against the Orioles last week. I do feel bad that they are the only team in the MLB without a win. I'll stick with the three I have, but just know I wish I would have picked them had I not picked them last week and had I already put them on my doc coming in. The other series I'm going to pick is the Giants over the Guardians, which is going to be the Giants weekend series after they face the Padres. Guardians have shown up a little bit on offense starting yesterday and into today. I think they're beating the Royals right now by a couple runs. Like you mentioned, Steven Kwan getting things going, Jose Ramirez. Oscar Mercado's hit home runs on back-to-back days. And I think the Giants will get Shane Bieber in one of these games, but outside of that, not too terrified by the Guardians pitching. And that game or that series is going to have Rodon, DeSclafani, and Wood for the Giants. So feeling good about that one.
Yeah, my next pick, this is the one I added instead of the one that I threw in at the end. But I have the Phillies over the Marlins, and I believe this is the weekend series as well. So it's going to be, you might see one of Lopez and or Rogers, but I think Alcantara won't appear in that series. And Phillies offense, I think the Marlins offense isn't good enough for the Phillies pitching. And I think the Phillies offense will just be a little bit better than the Marlins pitching. And I think that's what it's going to come down to is who can win the Phillies hitting versus Marlins pitching battle. And I think it's going to be the Phillies. I've got them as lock.
Yeah, that one. I mean, after seeing the Marlins this week, they're a pesky team. They've at the top of their rotation, I think, can compete with pretty much anyone. So I'm a fan of the Marlins. I can't quite lock them in, or I can't quite lock the Phillies in over the Marlins for that reason. So the only repeat I have from last week, I'm picking the Rays again. They faced the A's. And that's the one you stole from me, which I'm stealing your thunder a little bit.
I already had it. I wrote my locks before you.
I thought you only had three in there. Okay, whatever. No. The A's are the A's. The Rays are the Rays. Apologize to A's fans, and I know I don't want to lock the same team in each time, but two juicy matchups against the Orioles and the A's. Hopefully next week, the Rays have some tougher matchups, and I won't pick them again.
Yeah, so I'm throwing in a fourth one this week. We both had three last week. I'm gonna throw in a fourth. I also had the Rays over the A's. The Rays only undefeated team, which is why I threw on the hat today. But yeah, you cover that. They're undefeated. The A's are not good. So I got the Rays over the A's. Also locked that one in.
Those hats too are some of the best in baseball.
I love this one.
Did you see the couple miscues that they had this weekend though, and the helmet decal for
the sticker? I
forget who it was. Was it G-Man Choi? It might have been G-Man Choi. It was like completely off his helmet, and then they brought out a new mascot, and it's just the weirdest looking thing I've ever seen.
Oh yeah, that mascot was bad. I mean, I like their old mascot. I think it was called Raymond. I like the old one. I don't know why they have to do this new one. It was just like, it wasn't like a full mascot, like a whole full costume like we're normally seeing. It was just like a guy wearing baseball pants with like something covering the top half of his body.
I mean, it looks like something that would be in like a kid's game, like, or a kid's cartoon.
Yeah, it looks like a poorly done cartoon like character.
Yeah.
And that's their mascot. So I mean, that doesn't reflect the Rays on the field. I wish if the Rays were bad, we can make some funny jokes about that. But the Rays are good, and that's why we both got them as locks this week.
Yeah, I mean, it's you have that, you've got Tropicana Field. It's just the Rays, outside of their performance on the field, which is elite, kind of have not quite elite helmet decals, mascots, and stadiums. But yeah, again, I think they're a lock to beat the A's this weekend. Anything else you're looking forward to in the next coming week of baseball?
Just being able to continue to watch games that matter. I'm just grateful for all of it after we experienced 99 days of the lockout, but just excited for that baseball's back and gives me something to do with my days other than homework.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I don't get much done of nowadays.
Yeah.
Sorry, mom and dad.
Each day so far, we've been doing recaps on TikTok. So even though we're only here about once a week for the podcast, you can go follow us on TikTok. Right now, we're one follower away from 100. So if you see, and that's still the case, you can get brownie points from us too next week if we see that we've gotten to 100. But yeah, you can watch those daily recaps. If you're missing some games, we try and get to everything possible. We've seen Stanton home runs, Buxton home runs. There was the crazy Javier Baez walk-off against the Tigers, the Giants walk-off, Pete Alonso's home run. We're trying to cover everything. Jeremy Pena hitting his home run. There's a lot of stuff being covered on TikTok. We're going to still be active on Instagram and Twitter. I don't know if I have very much voice left in me. So do you want to hit the outro?
Yeah, I'll do it. Thank you guys for listening. And make sure if you like this video, like and subscribe. We really appreciate it. We're just trying to grow our name right now. But like I said, like and subscribe. Make sure you follow all the socials down below. Jack covered it. We're active on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. So make sure you go follow all of those. And thank you for listening today. We've been the Double Play Podcast, and we'll see you next week.